The stars looked different out here. Doyen stood in front of the main window of his small cargo ship and watched the distant lights. They were far from Earth, far from home. His ship, the Taepyeongyang Dawn, was old and slow, but it was his. He had bought it with money saved from 10 years of working on other people's ships. Now he was his own captain. Behind him, his sister Hyejin sat at the navigation station. Her fingers moved quickly over the computer screens. She was checking their route for the 3rd time that day. Hyejin always checked everything 3 times. It was annoying sometimes, but it had saved them twice already. Down in the engine room, Minho was singing. Doyen could hear him through the ship's speakers. Minho always sang when he worked. He said it helped him think. The songs were usually terrible, but Minho was the best engineer Doyen had ever met. He could fix anything with just basic tools and determination. Their cargo today was simple. Medical supplies going to a human colony 3 days away. The pay was not great, but it was honest work. That was enough for Doyen. He never wanted to be rich. He just wanted to fly among the stars and be free. They also had a passenger. Ambassador Kelrick sat in the small passenger cabin behind the bridge. He was Vorath, one of the oldest alien species in the galaxy. His people looked like large reptiles that walked on 2 legs. They had green scales and yellow eyes that never seemed to blink. Most humans found them scary at first, but Kelrick's was polite and quiet. He paid his fare and did not cause trouble. Humanity was new to space. Only 40 years ago, humans had invented the faster-than-light drive. Now they had 12 small colonies and a few hundred ships. The galaxy was old and full of powerful empires. The Vorath Empire alone had thousands of worlds and millions of ships. Compared to them, humans were like children playing in a backyard. Most alien species ignored humans. Some were kind. Others looked down at them. The galaxy had rules that were thousands of years old. Humans were still learning those rules. It was hard sometimes. Doyen, I am picking up something strange, Hyejin said suddenly. Her voice was tense. Doyen turned from the window and walked to her station. What is it? A distress signal. It is coming from about 2 hours away at full speed. Can you tell who it is? Hyejin worked her screens for a moment. Vorath ship. Diplomatic vessel. They are under attack. Ambassador Kelrick appeared in the doorway. He had heard everything. His yellow eyes were wide.
My people?
Yes, Hyejin said. But there is more. I'm reading 3 other ships. They are attacking the Vorath vessel. The signatures match Plexian raiders, pirates. They attacked ships in neutral space, stealing cargo and sometimes taking prisoners for ransom. They were dangerous and well-armed. The Taepyeongyang Dawn had no weapons. It was just a cargo ship. How long until a military ship can reach them? Doyen asked. Hyejin checked. Vorath patrol fleet is 4 hours away. Human ships are even farther. By the time anyone gets there, it will be too late. Ambassador Kelrick looked at Doyen. There was something in his eyes. Not quite hope, but maybe a question. Could they help? Should they even try? Doyen thought about it. The smart thing to do was ignore the signal. They had no weapons, no armor. 3 pirate ships would destroy them in minutes. They had cargo to deliver. They had their own lives to protect. Every logical reason said to keep flying their current course. But there were people on that Vorath ship. People who were going to die if nobody helped them. Change course, Doyen said. Full speed to the distress signal. Brother, we cannot fight them, Hyejin said quietly. I know, but maybe we can buy time. Call Minho up here. We need to think of something. 2 hours later, they arrived at the scene. The Vorath diplomatic ship hung in space like a broken bird. Its engines were dead. Pieces of its hull floated around it. 3 pirate ships circled it slowly. Like sharks around wounded prey, they were taking their time, making sure the Vorath ship could not escape before they boarded it. They have not seen us yet, Hyejin whispered, as if the pirates might hear her. Good. Minho, are we ready? Minho sat at the engineering station. He had worked for 2 hours straight to prepare. As ready as we can be, but I still think this is crazy. Noted. Hyejin, execute the plan. What happened next would have made real military captains laugh. The Taepyeongyang Dawn had no weapons, so Doyen and his crew had to get creative. They vented their entire cargo of medical oxygen into space behind them. Then Minho fired the plasma torch they used for repairs into the oxygen cloud. The result was a massive explosion that lit up space like a small sun. To the pirates, it looked like a military ship had fired a huge weapon. They immediately turned toward the Taepyeongyang Dawn, their weapons powered up. "They are coming after us," Hyejin said. Her hands were shaking. "Perfect. Run. Make them chase us away from the Vorath ship." The Taepyeongyang Dawn was old, but it could still move fast when it needed to. Hyejin plotted a course that took them into a nearby asteroid field. It was dangerous. One wrong move and they would crash into a rock. But the pirates would have the same problem. For 30 minutes they played a deadly game of chase. Hyejin's navigation skills kept them alive. She knew exactly how fast they could go, exactly how tight they could turn. The pirates were faster and better armed, but they were not expecting such crazy flying from a cargo ship. Then Minho had another idea. He dumped all their cargo containers into space behind them. The pirates had to dodge or slow down. It bought them a few more precious minutes. "How long until the patrol fleet arrives?" Doyen asked. His ship was shaking from near misses. The pirates were getting closer. 5 minutes. Maybe less. We can do this. Just 5 more minutes, but 3 minutes later, one of the pirate ships got a clear shot. The blast hit the Taepyeongyang Dawn's rear section. Alarms screamed. The ship lurched sideways. "We have lost main engine power," Minho shouted. "I can switch to backup, but it will not be fast enough." The 3 pirate ships moved in for the kill. There was nowhere left to run. Doyen stood at the captain's position and prepared himself. He had done what he could. They had saved the Vorath diplomats. That would have to be enough. Then space itself seemed to explode with light. 6 Vorath military ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel, directly between the Taepyeongyang Dawn and the pirates. They were massive, beautiful, and absolutely deadly. Their weapons fired once, just once. The 3 pirate ships vanished into clouds of debris. The lead Vorath ship sent a message. "Cargo vessel Taepyeongyang Dawn. This is Commander Terran of the Imperial Patrol Fleet. You have our gratitude. Stand by for rescue operations." Doyen sat down hard in his chair. His legs felt weak. They had survived. Somehow, impossibly, they had survived. 4 hours later, Doyen stood in the medical bay of the Vorath flagship. Ambassador Kelrix was there with his family. They had all been on the diplomatic vessel. His wife, his 3 children, including a small daughter named Valera, who could not be more than 10 years old. All 17 people aboard the Vorath ship had survived because the Taepyeongyang Dawn had drawn the pirates away. Ambassador Kelrix approached Doyen. He moved slowly, formally. When he spoke, his voice carried a weight that Doyen did not quite understand. "Captain Doyen of Earth, you saved my life. You saved my family. You risked everything when you had no reason to help us. For this I invoke the ancient law of my people. I speak the oath of eternal debt. The Vorath Empire will never forget what you have done. We owe you a debt that can never be fully repaid, but we will spend our lives trying." He held out a small crystal. It glowed with a soft blue light. When Doyen took it, it felt warm in his hand. "This is the token of debt. Keep it always. When the Vorath see this, they will know what you did." Doyen did not know what to say. He was just a cargo pilot. He had only done what seemed right. "Ambassador, we were just helping people who needed help. That is all." Something changed in Kelrix's eyes. He looked at Doyen as if seeing something new and unexpected. "Just helping people who needed help," he repeated softly. "Perhaps that is why your species will surprise the galaxy someday." Young Valera stepped forward. She looked up at Doyen with wide yellow eyes. "Thank you for saving my papa," she said in careful human language. "I will never forget you." Doyen smiled and knelt down to her level. "You are very welcome. Stay safe, little one." 2 days later, the Taepyeongyang Dawn was repaired and ready to fly again. The Vorath military had fixed all the damage and even upgraded some of their systems for free. Doyen, Hyejin, and Minho stood on the bridge, ready to continue their cargo run. Doyen looked at the crystal token sitting on his console. It still glowed softly. He picked it up and attached it to his uniform. It seemed important to Ambassador Kelrix, so he would wear it with respect. He did not know that this small token would one day save his entire species. He did not know that young Valera would remember his face for the rest of her life. He did not know that the galaxy would speak of this moment for generations to come. He only knew that they had helped people who needed help, and that was enough. The Taepyeongyang Dawn jumped to faster-than-light speed and disappeared into the stars, carrying 3 humans who had just changed the future without realizing it. 15 years had passed since the day Doyen saved the Vorath diplomats. Many things had changed. The young cargo pilot was now Admiral Doyen, commander of the Earth Defense Force's Eastern Sector. His hair had some gray in it now. His face had lines that came from years of difficult decisions, but his eyes were still kind. He stood in his office on the military station above Earth, looking at a small crystal on his desk. It still glowed with that soft blue light. After 15 years, the glow had never faded. The crystal token from Ambassador Kelrix. Doyen kept it close always, though he rarely told anyone the story behind it. Humanity had grown strong in those 15 years. They now had colonies on 12 worlds. Children born in space were now old enough to join the military. Earth had built 300 warships to protect their people. It was not a large fleet compared to the old empires, but it was respectable. Humans were no longer ignored by the galaxy, but growth brought problems. Human colonies had rich resources. They sat in good locations for trade. Other species began to notice. Some of them were not happy about it. The door to his office opened. Heejin walked in carrying a data pad. She was chief navigator for the entire colonial fleet now. She still checked everything 3 times. Some things never changed. "Brother, we have received the official message from the Kelthian Confederacy," she said. Her voice was quiet and worried. "Let me see it." Doyen read the message on the data pad. His jaw tightened. It was worse than he had feared. The Kelthian Confederacy had formed something called the Alliance of Ascendant Powers. 5 different alien species had joined together. All of them were old, powerful, and had thousands of ships, and they were demanding that humanity give them 8 colony worlds. Not buy them, not negotiate for them, just give them away. If Earth refused, the Alliance would take them by force. They gave humanity 30 days to decide. 8 worlds, Doyen said quietly. That is millions of people, families, homes. They want us to just abandon them. The intelligence reports say they have assembled 2,000 capital ships, Heejin said. We have 300. The mathematics are not good. No, they are not. That evening, Doyen met with the other military commanders. Minho was there too. He was head of the Human Engineering Corps now. His hair was completely gray, but he still sang when he worked. He had designed half the ships in the Earth fleet. Also present was Lieutenant Commander Jiwan, a young tactical officer who had proven herself in several battles against pirates. She was fierce and smart. Some people said she would be an admiral herself one day, and Captain Sungho, commander of the destroyer Cheonji. He had fought in more border conflicts than anyone else in the fleet. Has Earth government made a decision? Sungho asked. Not yet, Doyen said. They are trying to find allies. They have sent messages to every major power in the galaxy. And everyone is staying neutral. They do not want to fight the Alliance. We are alone. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant. No help was coming. If Earth fought, they would fight alone against an enemy 7 times larger. What about the Vorath Empire? Jiwan asked. I heard you once saved some Vorath diplomats, Admiral. Did they respond to our message? Doyen touched the crystal token on his uniform. No response. He tried not to feel hurt by that. It had been 15 years. Maybe Ambassador Kelrix had died. Maybe the Vorath had forgotten. Maybe their oath meant nothing after so much time. It did not matter now. They had to plan for war. If we fight, what are our chances? Doyen asked Minho. Minho looked at his data. In open battle? Almost 0. But we do not have to fight them in open battle. We know these territories better than they do. We can use hit-and-run tactics. Make them pay for every inch they take. If we are smart and lucky, we might destroy half their fleet before they reach Earth. But they would still win in the end. How long could we hold them? Maybe 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if everything goes perfectly. Sungho spoke up. Then we make those 2 weeks count. We make them remember that humans do not give up easily. Even if we lose, the galaxy will know we fought with everything we had. The others nodded. They all knew they might die, but they would die defending their homes and families. That meant something. 20 days later, Earth government gave their answer to the Alliance. They refused. The 8 colonies would not be abandoned. If the Alliance wanted those worlds, they would have to take them by force. The galaxy watched and waited. Some species admired human courage. Others thought humans were foolish. No one expected them to survive. The human fleet gathered at a place called the Arcturus Gate. It was the main jump point that led to Earth. If the Alliance wanted to reach humanity's homeworld, they had to come through here. Admiral Doyen decided to make his stand at this place. 300 human ships floated in formation. They looked small against the stars. Behind them was everything they loved. Their families. Their homes. Their future. They would not let it be taken without a fight. On the flagship Indomitable Spirit, Doyen stood on the bridge. Hyejin was at the navigation station. Minyo monitored the engineering systems. Jiwon stood ready at tactical. Sungho commanded a wing of destroyers nearby. They were all here, ready for whatever came next. "Admiral, we are detecting massive hyperspace signatures," Jiwon said. "The Alliance fleet is arriving." Space began to tear open. Hundreds of portals appeared. Through them came the Alliance fleet. Ship after ship after ship. They kept coming. The numbers were overwhelming. They formed a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across the sky. 2,000 ships, maybe more, all of them ready to destroy the humans who dared to refuse their demands. Doyen heard someone on the bridge whisper a prayer. He did not blame them. The sight was terrifying. A message came through on all channels. It was from the Alliance commander, a Kelthian named Praxis. His voice was cold and certain of victory. "Human fleet, this is your final chance. Surrender now and your people will be allowed to live under our rule. Refuse and we will take everything from you. You cannot win this fight. Be smart and give up." Doyen looked around his bridge. He saw determination in every face. Fear, yes, but also courage. These people had chosen to stand here. They had chosen to fight for what they believed in. He opened a channel to broadcast his response. Not just to the Alliance fleet, but to every ship in the human fleet. To every colony. To Earth itself. His voice was calm and strong. "Commander Praxis, you came here with thousands of ships because you thought we would be afraid. You thought we would break. You thought we would kneel. But you do not understand humans. We do not kneel. We do not break. We stand together. We protect what is ours. You want our worlds? You want our homes? Come and take them. But know this. Every ship you lose, every life you sacrifice, it will be because you chose to attack people who only wanted to live in peace. History will remember who started this war, and history will remember who stood their ground." He paused, then spoke again, his voice carrying across the void. "You came here believing we would break. You came here thinking we would kneel. You are wrong. Humanity stands. Today and always." Doyen closed the channel. He looked at his crew. "All ships, battle formation. Prepare to engage the enemy." The human fleet moved forward. 300 ships against 2,000. The mathematics said they could not win. But mathematics did not account for courage. It did not account for people fighting for everything they loved. Doyen's hand touched the crystal token one last time. He wondered if Ambassador Kelrix was still alive somewhere. He wondered if the old Vorath ever thought about the cargo pilot who saved his family. It did not matter now. What mattered was the battle ahead. What mattered was standing strong even when the odds were impossible. "All ships," Doyen said quietly. "Fire!" The human fleet opened fire. Hundreds of weapons lit up the darkness. The war for humanity's survival had begun, and across the galaxy, in the halls of the Vorath Empire, Empress Valira sat on her throne reading the same message that Earth had sent to every major power. A call for help that no one had answered. Her yellow eyes, so much like her father's, filled with tears. Then she stood and gave an order that would change everything. The Vorath Imperial Armada began to move. The first day of battle was chaos. The human fleet did not fight the way the Alliance expected. They did not line up their ships and trade shots like in traditional battles. Instead, they scattered like wolves hunting prey. Small groups of human ships would appear from nowhere, strike hard at weak points, then disappear before the Alliance could respond. They used asteroid fields to hide. They used nebula clouds for cover. They knew every corner of this space because it was their home. Minho's engineering teams had prepared surprises. Cargo containers that looked abandoned were actually mines. Distress signals that seemed real were traps. Communication buoys that appeared broken were weapons waiting to activate. The humans turned everything into a tool for survival. Hyejin's navigators plotted jump coordinates that seemed impossible. Human ships would appear behind enemy formations, strike and jump away before return fire could hit them. The calculations were dangerous. One small mistake meant crashing into a planet or a star. But the navigators were perfect. They had to be. Jiwan developed new targeting protocols. Human weapons were not as powerful as Alliance weapons, so they had to be smarter. Her systems found weak spots in enemy shields, found the exact places where one shot could do the most damage. Every bullet had to count. Captain Sungho led his destroyers in hit-and-run attacks that became legendary. His ship, the Cheonji, would appear, destroy 3 or 4 enemy vessels, and vanish before the Alliance could react. He lost 2 destroyers on the first day, but his tactics destroyed 30 Alliance ships. But the Alliance had numbers. For every ship the humans destroyed, there were 10 more to take its place. By the end of the first day, the human fleet had lost 40 ships. They had destroyed 120 Alliance vessels, which was incredible. But the mathematics were still against them. On the second day, things got worse. The Alliance adapted to human tactics. They started moving in tighter formations. They placed scouts everywhere to prevent surprise attacks. They began to push forward slowly but steadily toward Earth. Admiral Doyen barely slept. He stood on the bridge of the Indomitable Spirit, directing the battle, encouraging his crews, making impossible decisions. Which ships to send into danger? Which positions to abandon? Which people to sacrifice so others could live? Every decision hurt. These were not just ships on a screen. They were people he knew, friends, students he had trained, young officers with families waiting for them. Admiral, the cruiser Daejeon has lost all power, Jiwan reported. Captain Kim is requesting permission to evacuate. Doyen looked at the tactical display. The Daejeon was surrounded. If they tried to evacuate, the escape pods would be destroyed. But if they stayed on the ship, they would die when it exploded. Then Captain Kim made the choice himself. His voice came through the comm system, calm and clear. Indomitable Spirit, this is Daejeon. We still have engine power. We are going to ram the enemy flagship. Tell our families we stood strong. Tell them we made it count. Before Doyen could respond, the Daejeon's engines flared to full power. The dying cruiser accelerated directly at the largest Alliance ship in the formation. The enemy tried to shoot it down, but it was too close, moving too fast. The impact was visible across the entire battlefield. The Alliance flagship broke in half. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire that lit up space like a small sun. The bridge of the Indomitable Spirit was silent. Everyone had known Captain Kim. He had been a good man, a father of 3 children. But across the fleet, something changed. Other damaged ships began to do the same thing. Instead of retreating or surrendering, they rammed enemy vessels. Human crews fought with a ferocity that shocked the Alliance. They did not know how to quit. On the third day, the situation became desperate. The human fleet was down to 150 ships. They had destroyed over 400 Alliance vessels, but it was not enough. The enemy kept coming. Minho came to the bridge with dark circles under his eyes. He had not slept in 3 days. Admiral, I have an idea. It is crazy. It might not work, but if it does, it could buy us time. Tell me. There is an old satellite station near here. It was built 50 years ago and abandoned, but it still has a massive power core. If we can get a team there and overload the core, the explosion will be bigger than anything they have seen. We could take out maybe 200 ships if we time it right. How long would it take to overload the core? 20 minutes. Maybe 30. And the team? Could they escape in time? Minho was quiet for a moment. No, once they start the overload, there is no escape. They would have to stay and make sure it works. A suicide mission. Doyen hated those words. But they were running out of options. Find volunteers. People who understand what they are choosing. I will not order anyone to do this. 30 minutes later, Minho returned with shocking news. Over 200 people had volunteered. Engineers, soldiers, even some pilots. All of them willing to give their lives for this one chance. Doyen chose 12. The best engineers he had. People who could make absolutely sure the plan worked. He spoke to each of them personally, thanked them, promised their families would be honored forever. The team launched in a small transport. They reached the old station and began their work. Meanwhile, the human fleet started pulling back, drawing the Alliance forward toward the station. The enemy thought the humans were finally breaking. They pushed harder. The chief engineer on the mission sent regular updates. The voice was calm, professional. Core overload initiated. Power at 30%, 40%, 50%. This is going to work, Admiral. This is going to count. When the Alliance fleet was in perfect position, the station exploded. The blast was so powerful it created a temporary star. 230 Alliance ships were destroyed instantly. Another 100 were damaged badly. 12 human engineers died to make it happen. Doyen added their names to a list he kept, a list of people who had sacrificed everything. The list was getting very long, but even this was not enough. By the end of the third day, only 90 human ships remained. The Alliance still had over 1,000. They were preparing for one final push, one last attack that would break through to Earth. Doyen gathered his remaining commanders. They all looked exhausted, covered in sweat and stress, but their eyes were still determined. "We have done everything we can," Doyen said quietly. "We have made them pay for every inch. We have shown the galaxy what humans are made of. But the next attack will break our lines. They will reach Earth. Then we make our last stand over our homeworld," Sungho said. "Let them see Earth. Let them see what they are trying to destroy. Maybe it will make them think twice." Hyejin reached over and took her brother's hand. "We are proud to stand with you, brother, all the way to the end." The 90 remaining human ships formed up for the final battle. They moved into position directly between the Alliance fleet and Earth. Behind them, their blue and green homeworld hung in space like a jewel. This was what they were protecting. This was worth dying for. The Alliance fleet began their final advance, over 1,000 ships moving forward like a wave of death. Doyen touched the crystal token on his uniform one last time. He thought of Ambassador Kelrix, of young Valera with her wide yellow eyes, of a time when saving 17 aliens had seemed like the most important thing in the world. He wondered if they had ever thought of him again. "All ships, prepare for final engagement," he said quietly. "It has been an honor to serve with you all." The Alliance fleet was 5 minutes away. 4 minutes. 3 minutes. Then space itself began to tear apart. Massive portals opened across the battlefield, larger than anything anyone had ever seen. Through them came ships. Huge ships. Beautiful ships. Ships that made the Alliance fleet look like toys. The Vorath Imperial Armada had arrived. 4,000 capital ships emerged from hyperspace. Each one was more advanced and more powerful than anything the Alliance had. They formed up between the human fleet and the enemy. A wall of protection, a promise kept. At the head of this massive armada was the Imperial flagship Eternal Honor. It was the largest warship in known space, and standing on its bridge was Empress Valera. She opened a channel that broadcast to every ship in the system. Her voice was cold as ice and hard as steel. "This is Empress Valera of the Vorath Empire. 15 years ago, when I was a child, a human saved my life. He saved my father's life. He saved 17 Vorath diplomats when he had nothing to gain and everything to lose. He did it because it was right. The Vorath people do not forget such deeds. We do not abandon those who showed us mercy when they needed none to help us." She paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried absolute authority. "Any ship that fires upon humanity fires upon the Vorath Empire. Any species that attacks Earth attacks us all. This is not a request. This is not a negotiation. This is a fact. You have 1 hour to withdraw from human space completely. Any ship that remains after 1 hour will be destroyed. Choose wisely." The silence that followed was absolute. The entire galaxy was watching. Everyone had heard the broadcast. No one could believe what they were seeing. On the bridge of the indomitable spirit, Doyen stood frozen. He could not speak, could not move. Tears ran down his face. They had not forgotten. After 15 years, they had not forgotten. Hyejin was crying too. Minyo sat down hard in his chair, laughing and crying at the same time. Jiwon stared at the screen, unable to believe they were going to survive. And across the battlefield in the Alliance fleet, Commander Praxis looked at the Vorath Armada and understood. He understood that humans had earned this. He understood that sometimes courage and honor mattered more than power. He understood that his people had been wrong. He gave the order. The Alliance fleet began to withdraw. Not a single shot was fired. They simply turned and left, leaving human space forever. The war was over. And the quiet that followed was the sound of respect. The Alliance fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Within 1 hour, every single ship had left human territory. They did not look back. They did not send threats. They simply left. The message was clear. This war was over. Admiral Doyen stood on the bridge of the indomitable spirit, watching the last enemy ships vanish. Around him, his crew was crying, laughing, hugging each other. They had survived. Against all possible odds, they had survived. But Doyen felt numb. He looked at the tactical display showing his fleet. 90 ships remained out of 300. 210 ships destroyed. Thousands of people dead. Good people. Brave people. People who had trusted him to lead them. He pulled out the list he kept. The list of names. People who had sacrificed everything. Captain Kim and his crew on the Daejeon, the 12 engineers at the satellite station, dozens of others. He would need to write letters to all their families. He would need to tell them their loved ones had died as heroes, but first he had something else to do. A message came through from the Eternal Honor. It was a formal request. Empress Valera was inviting Admiral Doyen to come aboard the Vorath flagship. Alone. Hyejin looked worried. "Brother, you should take a security team. We do not know if we can trust them completely." Doyen shook his head. "They just saved our entire species. I think we can trust them. Besides, if they wanted to harm us, they have 4,000 ways to do it. I will go alone." He took a small shuttle to the Eternal Honor. As he approached, he realized just how massive the ship was. The indomitable spirit could fit inside it 100 times. This was the power of an empire that had existed for 10,000 years. The shuttle docked. Doyen stepped out and found himself in a corridor that was more beautiful than any building on Earth. The walls seemed to glow with soft light. The air smelled clean and fresh. Everything was perfect. Vorath soldiers lined both sides of the corridor. They stood at attention in full dress uniform. As Doyen walked past them, each soldier brought their hand to their chest in a salute. Not a military salute. Something different. Something that looked more personal. A Vorath officer approached. "Admiral Doyen, I am Commander Terran. My father commanded the patrol fleet that arrived 15 years ago. He told me the story of what you did. It is an honor to meet you." Doyen nodded, not trusting himself to speak. The weight of everything was pressing down on him. The battle. The deaths. The impossible rescue. It was all too much. Commander Terran led him through the ship to a large set of doors. They opened automatically, revealing a chamber that took Doyen's breath away. The ceiling was so high it seemed to disappear. Windows showed the stars outside. In the center of the room, on a raised platform, sat a throne, and on that throne sat Empress Valera. She was no longer the small child he remembered. She had grown into a powerful woman. Her scales were deep green, almost black. Her yellow eyes were sharp and intelligent. She wore armor that looked both elegant and deadly. This was someone who ruled millions of worlds. But when she saw Doyen, something changed in her expression. Her eyes grew wet with tears. She stood from the throne and walked down the steps toward him. For a moment she looked like that frightened child again. "Captain Doyen," she said softly. "I apologize. Admiral Doyen now. My father spoke of you often before he died. He said you were the kind of person he wished all species could be." Doyen did not know how to respond. He had not expected this. "Your Majesty, I am sorry for your loss. Ambassador Kelrix was a good man." He was. "And because of him I learned what true honor means. When your government sent the call for help to every major power in the galaxy, I saw it immediately. I knew what I had to do. The Vorath Empire does not forget its debts." She noticed the crystal token on his uniform. A small smile touched her face. "You kept it. All these years you kept my father's token. Of course, it was a gift, and it reminded me that sometimes doing the right thing matters more than being safe." Valera stepped closer to him. "Admiral, you need to understand something. What we did today was not charity. It was not politics. It was paying back a debt. You saved 17 Vorath lives when you were just a cargo pilot with an unarmed ship. You asked for nothing, expected nothing. You simply did what was right." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "My father told me that the measure of a species is not in their weapons or their wealth. It is in what they do when they have nothing to gain. You showed the galaxy what humanity truly is. Today, we simply showed them that such deeds do not go unrewarded. The debt is still not fully paid. It never will be." Doyen felt something break inside him. All the stress, all the fear, all the weight of the past 3 days came crashing down. He tried to speak but could not. Tears ran down his face. "I lost so many people," he said quietly. 210 ships. Thousands of crew members. They trusted me to keep them safe, and I could not." Valera reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. It was a gesture of comfort that crossed the gap between their species. "They did not die because you failed them. They died because they chose to stand for something greater than themselves. That is the highest honor any warrior can have. Their families will know this. The galaxy will know this. History will remember that humanity stood against impossible odds and never broke. She stepped back and her voice became formal again. Admiral Doyun, on behalf of the Vorath Empire, I make this declaration. Humanity is now under our protection. Any species that threatens Earth or its colonies threatens us. We will help rebuild your fleet. We will share our technology. We will stand with you as equals and allies. This is not temporary. This is forever. Doyun could barely believe what he was hearing. Your Majesty, that is too much. We cannot accept such generosity. You can and you will. Besides, this is not just about the past. I have watched humanity closely these past 15 years. You are young as a species, but you have something special. You fight for each other. You sacrifice for strangers. You never give up. The galaxy needs more species like yours. Over the next few days, the galaxy watched in amazement as the Vorath Empire made good on their promises. They sent engineering teams to help repair human ships. They provided medical supplies and food for the colonies. They even offered to help rebuild the ships that had been destroyed. But the most surprising thing was what happened with the other species. The Kelthian Confederacy sent a message. Commander Praxis himself came to Earth to speak with the human government. He arrived with no weapons, no guards, just himself and a small ship. Admiral Doyun met him at the landing pad. Praxis stepped out of his ship and stood before the human admiral. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then Praxis did something unexpected. He knelt down on one knee. Admiral Doyun, I came here to ask for your forgiveness. My people were wrong. We saw your rapid growth and felt threatened. We convinced ourselves that taking your colonies was justified. But we were wrong. You fought with more honor than we deserved to face. He stood up and met Doyun's eyes. My government has sent me to negotiate peace. We want to make amends. We want to learn from you. If you will have us, the Kelthian Confederacy would like to become allies with humanity. Doyun thought about all the people who had died fighting the Kelthians. He thought about Captain Kim ramming his ship into the enemy. He thought about the 12 engineers who sacrificed themselves. Part of him wanted to refuse. Part of him wanted revenge. But then he remembered something Ambassador Kelrix had said 15 years ago. Sometimes doing the right thing was more important than doing the satisfying thing. Commander Praxis, I accept your request for peace. But you must do something for me first. You must come with me to the memorial service we are holding for our fallen. You must see what your war cost us. And you must remember. I will, Praxis said quietly. The memorial service was held 1 week later at the Arcturus Gate, where the battle had taken place. Representatives from 50 different species came to attend. The Vorath Empire sent Empress Valira herself. Even some of the other Alliance species sent diplomats to pay respects. A large structure had been built floating in space. It was made of metal taken from the destroyed human ships. On it were carved the names of every person who had died in the battle. Over 8,000 names. Doyun stood before the memorial with his surviving crew. Hyejin was on his left, Minho on his right. Jiwon and Sungho stood behind them. All around were families of the fallen. Parents who had lost children. Children who had lost parents. Husbands and wives who would never see their loved ones again. Doyun spoke, and his words were broadcast to every human colony and to representatives across the galaxy. We stand here today to honor those who gave everything. They fought not because they wanted war, but because they loved peace. They died not because they sought glory, but because they protected what they loved. History will remember their names. History will remember that when humanity was tested, we did not break. We stood together, we sacrificed together, and we survived together. He paused, looking at the wall of names. The galaxy learned something these past weeks. They learned that humans will fight for what is right. They learned that we protect our own. They learned that when a Terran gun fires, it speaks with the voice of courage and honor. And they learned that such voices command respect. The quiet that followed our stand is the quiet of understanding. We are no longer the newcomers to be ignored. We are equals. Empress Valira stepped forward. She placed a Vorath battle standard at the base of the memorial. It was the highest honor her people could give. The Vorath Empire honors these warriors. They will be remembered in our halls alongside our own heroes. This memorial will stand forever as proof that honor, once given, never dies. One by one, other species came forward. The Kelthians, the Plexians, even species that had stayed neutral during the war. They all added something to the memorial. Flowers, crystals, banners, each one a sign of respect. The galaxy had changed, and it would never be the same again. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Arcturus Gate. The galaxy barely recognized humanity anymore. The small species that everyone had ignored was now one of the major powers. Earth and its colonies thrived. Trade routes connected human worlds to thousands of other planets. Children grew up knowing they lived in a universe where their species mattered. Grand Admiral Doyen stood in his new office on the Galactic Security Council station. He was no longer just commander of Earth's eastern sector. He now represented all of humanity in matters that affected the entire galaxy. His hair was almost completely gray now, but his eyes were still kind and determined. Through his window, he could see the memorial at Arcturus Gate. It had grown larger over the years. Other species had added sections honoring their own fallen warriors. It had become a place where the galaxy remembered that peace was built on the sacrifice of brave people. The crystal token still hung on his uniform. After 20 years, it still glowed with that soft blue light. Doyen touched it often, remembering the young cargo pilot he had once been. Remembering that one small choice to help strangers had changed everything. His door opened. Hijin walked in carrying datapads as always. She directed the new Interspecies Navigation Academy now, teaching young pilots from a dozen different species how to fly together. Minyo was right behind her, followed by Jiwon and Sungho. They all held important positions, but they still met regularly as a team. Some bonds never broke. Brother, we have a problem, Yejin said. Her voice carried that same worried tone from years ago. Reports are coming in from the frontier. A new species has emerged from dark space. They are not answering any communication attempts. How many ships? Unknown. But they have already conquered 3 minor civilizations. Their technology appears to be very advanced. More advanced than anything we have seen before. Minho pulled up holographic images. These are their ships. Look at the design. Nothing like Vorath, Kelthian, or any known species. They seem to be aggressive and organized. This could be bad, Jiwon added more information. Intelligence suggests they are moving toward the core territories. If they maintain their current course, they will reach populated space within 3 months. We need to prepare. The Galactic Council is meeting tomorrow, Sungho said. Every major species will be there. This is the first real threat the galaxy has faced since the peace was established. Doyen looked at the data carefully. A new enemy. Unknown capabilities. 3 civilizations already destroyed. This was exactly the kind of situation that could break the fragile peace that had been built. Then we need to make sure the Council stands together. We learned 5 years ago what happens when species fight alone. We need to face this threat as one galaxy, not as separate empires. The next day, the Galactic Council chamber was filled with representatives from every major species. The Vorath Empire sent Empress Valera herself. The Kelthians sent Commander Praxis, who now served as their ambassador. The Plexians, the humans, and dozens of other species all gathered in one room. The mood was tense. Some species wanted to ignore the problem, hoping the new enemy would not reach their territory. Others wanted to attack immediately. A few suggested trying peaceful contact again. Everyone had different opinions. The council leader, an old Plexian diplomat named Torvin, called for order. We have gathered here to discuss the threat from dark space. 3 civilizations have fallen. We need to decide how to respond. Grand Admiral Doyen of Earth has requested to speak first. Doyen stood and walked to the center of the chamber. Every eye in the room was on him. He spoke clearly and simply, the way he always did. 5 years ago, my species faced extinction. We stood alone against an enemy that outnumbered us 7 to 1. We fought with everything we had, but it was not enough. We would have died if not for the Vorath Empire, who remembered a debt from 15 years before. They taught the galaxy a lesson that day. They taught us that when we stand together, we are stronger than any enemy. He paused, making sure everyone was listening. Now we face a new threat, a species we do not understand. They may be hostile. They may be reasonable. We do not know yet. But I know one thing for certain. If we face them as separate species, some of us will fall. If we face them together as one united force, we can survive anything. I propose we form a joint fleet. Not just humans and Vorath, everyone. Kelthians, Plexians, all the species in this room. We approach this new enemy together. We try for peace, but we prepare for war. And if they choose to attack us, They will learn the same lesson the Alliance learned 5 years ago. They will learn that this galaxy protects its own. The chamber was silent for a moment. Then Empress Valera stood. The Vorath Empire supports this proposal. We will contribute our full military strength to the joint fleet. Grand Admiral Doyen has proven his wisdom and courage. If he leads this fleet, we will follow. Commander Praxis stood next. The Kelthian Confederacy agrees. We learned our lesson about fighting divided. Our assault fleets are ready to join the united force. One by one, other species stood and pledged their support. The Plexians offered their industrial capacity to build supplies. Smaller species offered their unique technologies and skills. Within an hour, every major power in the galaxy had agreed. For the first time in recorded history, the galaxy would face a threat as one united force. 2 months later, the largest military fleet ever assembled gathered at the edge of explored space, over 5,000 ships from 50 different species, all flying in formation. Humans worked alongside Vorath. Kelthians coordinated with Plexians. Old enemies had become new allies. Grand Admiral Doyen stood on the bridge of the new flagship Unity. It was a joint construction project, built using technology from multiple species. Heejin served as chief navigator for the entire fleet. Minho had helped design the ship's systems. Jiwan commanded one of the largest battle groups. Sungho led diplomatic teams ready to attempt first contact. On the tactical display, Doyen could see the massive fleet spread out behind him. Ships of every size and design, each one carrying crews who had chosen to stand together. It was beautiful in a way that made his heart ache. Empress Valera stood beside him as strategic advisor. Commander Praxis served as his second in command. The three of them represented the transformation the galaxy had undergone. A human who once flew cargo ships, a Vorath who remembered kindness, a Kelthian who learned from mistakes. The scout reports indicate the unknown fleet is 3 days away, Valera said. They are still not responding to communication attempts. Keep trying, Doyen said. We do not want war if it can be avoided, but if they attack, they need to understand what they face. Heejin approached from the navigation station. Brother, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever think about that day? 20 years ago? When you decided to help those Vorath diplomats? Do you think you would make the same choice again? Doyen smiled and touched the crystal token on his uniform. Every single time. That day taught me something important. It taught me that the right choice is not always the safe choice, but it is always the choice worth making. He looked around the bridge at all the different species working together. Vorath officers coordinating with human tacticians, Kelthian engineers working with Plexian technicians. Everyone focused on the same goal. Look at what that one choice created. Look at this fleet. Look at these alliances. 20 years ago, I was just trying to save 17 people. I had no idea it would lead to this. That is the thing about doing what is right. You never know how far the ripples will spread. Commander Praxis spoke up from his station. Grand Admiral, you did more than save 17 Vorath that day. You showed us all what it means to have honor. You showed us that strength is not just about weapons and numbers. It is about character and courage. That lesson saved my species from making terrible mistakes. It saved all of us, an alert sounded. The unknown fleet had been detected. They were approaching faster than expected. Within hours, they would make contact. All ships, battle stations, Doyen ordered. But keep all communication channels open. We try for peace first, always. The United Fleet moved into formation. 5,000 ships, 50 species, one purpose. They did not know if the unknown enemy would choose peace or war. They did not know if this would be a diplomatic meeting or the biggest battle in galactic history. But they knew one thing for certain. They would face it together. Doyen looked out at the stars and thought about the journey that had brought him here. From a young cargo pilot to Grand Admiral of the United Galactic Fleet, from saving 17 aliens to commanding thousands of ships, from being ignored by the galaxy to helping lead it, all because 20 years ago he had chosen to help people who needed help, all because he had believed that doing the right thing mattered more than staying safe. The legend had spread across every world in the galaxy. They told the story in schools to children of every species. They spoke of the day a Terran gun fired and brought silence through the respect it commanded. They spoke of honor that transcended species and time. They spoke of a human who taught the galaxy that kindness was not weakness, and that sometimes the most powerful weapon was simply doing what was right. The unknown fleet appeared on the horizon. massive and alien, ready for whatever came next. Grand Admiral Doyen stood ready with his allies beside him, his sister on navigation, his oldest friend in engineering, his trusted officers at their posts, an empress who remembered being saved, a former enemy who became a friend. They were not alone. They would never be alone again. All ships, this is Grand Admiral Doyen. Today we show this new species what they face. Not one empire, not one military, but a galaxy that stands together, a galaxy that learned from past mistakes, a galaxy that protects its own. He paused, his voice carrying across thousands of ships. We try for peace, but if they choose war, they will learn the same lesson others learned. When the Terran gun fires, when any of our guns fire together, quiet follows, the quiet of respect, the quiet of understanding, the quiet that says we are not alone, we are not weak, and we will never surrender what we have built. The United Fleet moved forward as one, 5,000 ships, 50 species, one voice. And in the memorial at Arcturus Gate, the names of the fallen watched over a galaxy they had died to protect. A galaxy that had learned from their sacrifice. A galaxy that would never forget that honor once given never dies. The future stretched ahead, unknown and uncertain. But whatever came next, they would face it together. Because one young cargo pilot had once helped strangers when he had nothing to gain. Because kindness had created alliances stronger than any weapon. Because the galaxy had finally learned what humanity knew all along. That doing the right thing always matters. That courage comes in many forms. That the smallest choice can change everything. And that when people stand together for what is right, nothing in the universe can break them. The end.